Okay, for this session here, we're going to talk about the Lewis and Clark expedition. So as we talked before, in 1803, this yellow area of land is going to be purchased by Jefferson. And in 1803, with the treaty right here, we have now doubled the size of the United States. Now, this is going to cost us $15 million to do so. $15 million is a lot of money. But what we get for it is, one, we get our right of deposit down here in New Orleans, but we also, in total, get 828,000 square miles. The deal is, though, we don't know exactly what we bought up here in this region. And so Jefferson's going to take a lot of heat for that. So he's going to have to figure out what the heck he just bought. So that's when he writes a letter, this letter here, to Meriwether Lewis, asking him to search the territory here and figure out what the heck he has here in the Louisiana Territory. And so Meriwether Lewis is going to accept this challenge, but he's not going to do it alone. He's going to call on his old Army commander, William Clark, and the two of them are going to have skills to complement one another to get this mission accomplished. Now, the two of them, they're not going to go alone. They're going to need a team, and this team is going to be referred to officially as the Corps of Discovery. And in the Corps of Discovery, we're talking about 45 people. We're going to talk about the facts of the trip and then later on the discovery. So of those 40-some people on the trip, one name of note is York. That's William Clark's slave that will be brought along for the expedition. About 40 people or so on the trip. Some are going to join as they go along. Some are going to people will drop out early. But give or take about 40 people. And their mission was to explore the Louisiana Territory. And in doing so, they're going to need a boat. This is called the keel boat here. Here's a reproduction of the keel boat. And this keel boat is going to be kind of like the master ship of the group. They are going to have two other smaller ships known as pirogues to help them along. And the starting point for this trip is going to be the city of St. Louis. Now, St. Louis is right on the Mississippi River. And so this is like the last edge of civilization. And then from there, their start is to head up the Missouri River. So this is upstream, so this is not a fun journey heading against stream. These boats are going to be sailed at times. They're going to be pulled, pushed. It could be oared, like you're rowing the boat, or even just kind of poled, which means you just kind of push off the bottom and continue upriver. So they're going to leave St. Louis in May of 1804. And so May of 1804, they head upriver. It's not an easy journey against the current, but eventually they're going to start to run out of time because it's starting to get cold. And in October 1804, they are going to decide, you know what, we're going to hang out and make our winter quarters here in a place that we're going to end up calling Fort Mandan. There's going to be a really large Indian village made up of the Mandan tribe and the Hidatsa tribe, two tribes that are familiar with French trappers and traders. So when the Lewis and Clark expedition comes along, it's not so foreign to these Native Americans. These Native American tribes are going to be real nice, hospitable, and they decide, you know what, we're going to hang out here for our winter. And with that, the Lewis and Clark expedition, they are going to build a fort that they will name Fort Mandan after the local tribe. It's going to take them a few weeks to build this, and this is where they will spend their time. From Fort Mandan, they'll be here in this area from October 1804 until it gets warm in March of 1805. Now, while they're here hanging out, Lewis and Clark are going to come across a French trapper fur trader. This guy right here, his name is Toussaint Charbonneau. Now, Charbonneau is French. He knows French. He's a trapper trader. He's been dealing with the natives for a long time. He lives in this general area vicinity and such. And they thought, hey, this guy Charbonneau, he would be a good addition to the expedition. For one, he's French. He knows French. He also knows other Native American languages, and he could help us with as being a guide because he's more familiar with the areas there. Charbonneau has 2 wives, and he decides to bring along one of the wives on this expedition. And this is Sacagawea or Sacagawea, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Some complications here. She's younger. She's 16 years old. She is pregnant, close to giving birth. And actually, while their time at Fort Mandan, she will give birth to a baby boy named Jean Baptiste. But despite the infant son, she will head out on the expedition with her husband, Toussaint Charbonneau, and help Lewis and Clark along the way. So they leave Fort Mandan in March of 1805, and they will continue on their journey. Now they come up to a fork in the river here, and this is kind of like, all right, which way do we go? Which way do we go? Well, the natives said, hey, if you know you're going the right way, if you come across some falls, and they'll come across an area which will come to be known later as the Great Falls. Falls are pretty and all, but it's something where you can't continue to move your boats forward. And so what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to take their boats out of the water, drag them on land, and then put them back into the water again. And that vocabulary term is what we call portage. So not fun, portage is, but they're going to have to take their boats out, put it back in the water again, and then continue on. And as they head up the Missouri River, they will find eventually the source, the beginning of the Missouri River. And their hope was that they would be able to just simply climb to the summit there and then look over and find another river to take them the other way, downriver to the Pacific Ocean. However, that wasn't the case. When they came to the source of the Missouri River, what they found were mountains, and not just any mountains. These were the Rocky Mountains. And they knew, all right, this is not good. We're going to need to find some horses here to help us out along the way. And so this is where the Lewis and Clark expedition strikes a lot of luck here. When they meet up with the Shoshone tribe, Sacagawea is used as one of those translators to communicate with the Shoshone tribe. And it's realized at this point that the chief of the Shoshones, Kamalawe, is the brother of Sacagawea, the long-lost brother of Sacagawea. And so with this reunion, this is a big stroke of luck for Lewis and Clark because they're going to get their horses and be able to trek through the Rocky Mountains, although it's not an easy trek. Eventually, with some help of the Native Americans, especially the Nez Perce, they'll be able to continue their track across the Rocky Mountains, and then eventually hook up with a couple rivers, a couple minor ones here, the Clearwater, the Snake Rivers, and eventually which flow into the Columbia River. And it's going to be the Columbia River that takes them to their goal, the Pacific Ocean. They will eventually reach the Pacific Ocean in November of 1805. And so a famous quote here from Lewis is, "Ocean in view, oh the joy." They made it. They actually got to the Pacific Ocean. It took them a year and a half to get there, but they got there. And so once they're there, they're like, all right, now what? Well, timing is such that they can't really turn around and go home because winter is approaching and they don't want to do a winter through the Rocky Mountains. So it's decided that, hey, we're going to set up shop and live here on the coast for the winter. And they are going to build a fort. But the question is, where to build the fort? And so, let me move on here. It's decided, all right, we're going to build this fort right here. But the question is, where are we going to build it? A vote is taken as to where the location should be. The location is decided right here, close to the Columbia River on the Oregon side of the Columbia River. But the big deal about the vote was that they let everybody vote, even Sacagawea, even York, the slave, which was, a pretty big thing back then. So the design was decided on, the location was decided on, and here is a replication of the fort named Fort Clatsop after the local friendly tribe. So at Fort Clatsop, they're going to be here from November 1805 to March of 1806. During their time here, the weather is miserable, not much to do. They're going to hang out and trade with the local tribes here. Here's a famous artwork, bartering blue beads